All feelings of humans come from environmental stimuli. Human eyes function as a camera. Our brain is a display screen composed of nerve cells arranged. Each nerve cell is a pixel in the display screen. When I see an object, its image is via my eyes, mapped into the brain, lightening some brain cells on the display screen. Those lightened brain cells function like bulbs, which emit energy to the outside. The brain cells lightened by the environment constitute your consciousness. The brain cells not lightened by the environment constitute your subconsciousness. Consciousness represents the object in environment. Subconsciousness represents your ego. They complement each other, just like a picture and its background. You can't understand a picture without background. Similarly, you cannot understand consciousness without subconsciousness. To understand a positive pole, you need a negative pole. To understand white, you need black. To understand fear, you need desire. To understand desire, you need fear. To understand capitalism, you need socialism. To understand socialism, you need capitalism. In a word, you need subconsciousness to understand consciousness. So they complement each other. They are also mutually contradictory. Because internal organs are energizing cells in the consciousness region, while cells in the subconsciousness region cannot be energized by internal organs. It's like cells in the consciousness region are making money. Then cells in the subconsciousness region cannot make money. Thus, cells in the consciousness region and those in the subconsciousness region are deadly enemies, which will be discussed later. Each object you see in the environment will lighten a part of your brain cells and help you build a corresponding ego. Through an object in the environment, you can see your ego. You need an ego to see an object in the environment. This makes me think of my first meeting with my boyfriend here. He made it powered off here, appeared in front of me suddenly. He was so handsome. I was so scared. A cycle appeared in front of me suddenly. When I saw that me just now, through my eyes, he lightened my brain and built his image in my brain. My brain is a 3D environment simulator. composed of nerve cells, which can simulate the object I see. When I shift my sight from him, you will hear click. Because my sight shift is like a switch, which closes his image in my brain. When I reshift my sight to him, you will hear click again, because my sight reopens his image in my brain.
At the moment when I see you, you also build your image in my brain. This image corresponds to an ego of mine.
This is my first meeting with my boyfriend. Through your life, in your brain, images of the whole universe will be stored. Some of the images are happy ones formed by good experiences, while others are painful ones formed by bad experiences. No matter whether images of these objects are happy or painful, in your heart, they will build a corresponding ego. Some egos are comfortable, such as love affairs or family ties. Some egos are painful, such as breaking up or bankruptcy. Some egos are healthy, such as struggle and self-discipline. Some egos are toxic, such as gamble and alcoholism. Psychotherapy is to help you clear away toxic egos. There is a large scope for toxic egos, including egos easy to see such as alcoholism, gamble and drug use. Also including anti-reality egos and egos with mental system imbalance. Those complicated egos not easy to see will be discussed in detail later. Between an environment image and an ego, there is comparison of strengths. In comparison of strengths, when your ego is stronger, you will be more confident in front of the object. For example, you compare with your kid for the age, or compare with your subordinate for the identity. In comparison of strengths, when your ego is weaker, you will be more self-based in front of the object. For example, I compare with my parents for the age, or compare with my boss for the identity. Attributes can be compared in single items, or compared comprehensively. For example, my boyfriend is taller than me, while I'm whiter than my boyfriend, but his dad is very poor, while my dad is very rich. Hence, through comprehensive comparison with him, I'm slightly more confident. A single ego of humans can be accumulated. The accumulated egos are called an accumulative ego. It represents the overall ego of a person. Similarly, the accumulated confidence is called accumulative confidence. Accumulated self-abasement is called accumulative self-abasement. Confidence or self-abasement is a type of mental imbalance. Accumulated confidence or self-abasement reflects the whole mental imbalance degree of the person. With a higher accumulative ego, the person will be more confident. He often thinks with himself as the center and ignores his weaknesses. With a lower accumulative ego, the person will be more self-abased. He often thinks with the environment as the center and ignores weaknesses of others. Some environmental objects stand for a desire inside your body. Such as foods and lovers. Some environmental objects stand for a kind of fear in your body. Such as toxic substances, natural enemies or the like. When the object in environment stands for a desire of you, your brain will start a desire capture mechanism. It commands muscle cells to hunt the desired object, such as food collection and pursuit of the opposite sex. The image I built in my boyfriend's brain stands for a desire to go after me. His brain commands muscle cells to dance in front of me.
洗尽费力，让你保持离我心脏最近的距离，再也不用担心会和你断了联系，一辈子也要在一起。
Damn it, it's powered off. Luckily, we have a standby power.
外衣脱掉脱掉，内衣脱掉脱掉，外裤脱掉脱掉，内裤脱掉脱掉，面具脱掉脱掉，统脱掉。不好意思，放错音乐了啊。
This is how my boyfriend made his brain start the desire capture mechanism to command muscle cells to dance in front of me. When the object in environment stands for a type of fear of you, your brain will start a fear defense mechanism, which commands muscle cells to fight against the fearful object or avoid it. Muscle cells, no matter executing a task command of desire capture or that of fear defense given by the brain, will consume energy. Nerve chains connect muscle cells in series to move. The faster the cells move, the more energy they will consume. Then internal organs will energize brain and muscle cells. The faster the cells move, the more energy the internal organs charge. But energy supplemented by internal organs to them will not exceed that consumed in their movement, because without brain commands to execute, muscle cells can still emit energy, just like a worker works every day, while his pay from the boss will exceed his daily consumption. The reason is that the worker may not work every day. When there is no work to do, he can buy foods with the excess money. In this process, muscle cells function like workers of the body. The brain is like a general manager of the body, while internal organs work as the chairman of body. Internal organs supply energy to the brain to make it command work of muscle cells. Then the brain can take energy as the pay to muscle cells that worked. Those muscle cells doing more work will get more pay. Internal organs function as an energy processing plant, which can process substances into energy. A human body is an exchange system of substances and energy. Muscle cells of hands and feet collect substances from the nature and make deals using them with the internal organs to get energy. Internal organs get substances from muscle cells of hands and feet and give them energy as an exchange. So from inside to outside, internal organs provide energy to the brain and body and control the wealth of body energy. They are the boss of body. But from outside to inside, muscle cells of hands and feet collect substances for body. Muscle cells of hands control the substance wealth of body. Hands and feet provide substances to the brain and internal organs. They are the boss. The internal organs and brain work for hands and feet. So we can conclude, internal organs and hands and feet are bilaterally employed. I hire you to produce energy for me. You hire me to collect substances for you. Or I hire you to produce energy for me. You hire me to defend against enemies for you. It's like how taxpayers hire politicians to command an army to defend against external invasion. Between internal organs and muscle cells, there is a transaction of substances and energy. Or there is a transaction of defense tasks and energy. Every transaction needs a trading place. Brain is the trading place of substances and energy in our body, or a trading place of defense tasks and energy. Brain is like a vegetable store in our body. Internal organs and muscle cells function as a vegetable buyer and a vegetable seller, who trade with each other at the vegetable store. because internal organs are automatically bound with an environment. When you see an object in the environment, a part of brain cells will be automatically lightened. The brain may then start the desire capture mechanism, or a fear defense mechanism to command muscle cells to move. Accordingly, the muscle cells started will also be lightened. Internal organs automatically energize brain cells and muscle cells started by the environment. The stronger the environmental stimuli to the human body, the higher the degree of desire and fear started by the brain, the more energy the internal organs pay. So, superficially, our mental system is making contact with the environment. Essentially, our muscle cells in vivo are making contact with the internal organs by the environment, namely a transaction of substances and energy, or a transaction between energy production and security defense. Hands and feet collect substances for internal organs. In the nature with wind and rain, they also protect the internal organs. We've discussed a lot. You may ask, what is exactly a desire? What is fear? What are essences of desire and fear? Cells, human bodies, a family, a company, a country, or even a vegetable store can be regarded as a life entity. In the human body, internal organs and muscle cells trade for substances and energy. In a family, a male and a female trade for interests. In a company, capitalists and workers trade for capitals and labor services. In a country, taxpayers and tax gatherers trade for social orders and labor services. At a vegetable store, the buyer and the seller trade for interests. In any transaction, both parties agree on some interests and go against each other for other interests. At the vegetable store, the buyer always expects a lower price, while the seller always expects a higher one. In a company, capitalists and workers agree on some interests. Capitalists provide workers with raw materials and production orders. Workers produce wealth. As for creating wealth, they agree on the interests. As for the wealth produced, capitalists get more, then workers get less. From the perspective of salary, they pursue different interests. In a country, taxpayers and tax gatherers also have the similar relation. Politicians maintain social orders for a country, while taxpayers produce wealth. Tax gatherers get more wealth produced, so there is less wealth left for the taxpayers. At this time, they have opposite interests. A male and a female in a family have both cooperation and gain. When both trading parties have consistent interests, they will cooperate with each other. When they have opposite interests, they will have a gain. Hence the desire. When internal organs and muscle cells have consistent interests, is the same as cooperation. The fear. When internal organs and muscle cells have opposite interests, is the same as gain. We are talking about essences of desire and fear. By cooperation and coexistence, cells will form a life. In case of a mutual gain, the life will tend to be broken up. In the vegetable market, the buyer and the seller have a gain for the price. When the price increases, interests move to the seller. When the price decreases, interests move to the buyer. Capitalists and workers have a gain for the salary. When the worker's salary increases, Interests move to the workers. When the workers' salary decreases, interests move to the capitalists. Politicians and voters have a game for the tax rate. When the tax rate increases, interests move to the politicians. When the tax rate decreases, interests move to the voters. It is worth mentioning, unidirectional flow of interests in a life entity will make it imbalanced. As time goes, the life entity will be broken up. The so-called I is a standard for human thinking. Just like in the vegetable market, price is a standard for trade between the seller and the buyer. The human body consumes energy and collects substances from the environment. Indeed, it is making a deal with the environment. In the long run, a human body can only survive when it gets more substances than the consumed energy. Hence, the human body expects to take initiative and the upper hand while trading with the environment. This is an instinct. When we trade with the environment object and regard ourselves to have an inferior position, our ego will be weakened. You should always remember, your internal organs are automatically bound with the environment. Hence, our trade with the environment is the trade between muscle cells and internal organs. Our ego weakening means internal organs get the upper hand in trade. Superficially, the environment gets the upper hand, but the environment is automatically bound with internal organs, so in fact the internal organs get the upper hand. When we get the upper hand while trading with an environment object, our ego will be strengthened. In fact, in such trade of substances and energy, muscle cells get the upper hand. The so-called get the upper hand means this party has a higher bargaining right. With the vegetable market as an example, it runs today. Vegetables will rot if they are not sold out. Hence, the buyer gets a higher bargaining right and forces down the price by this chance. I can also understand it as the salary of workers in a company. A company is a life entity. Salary is a standard for trading between capitalists and workers, and also a game result of them. When the capitalists have a higher bargaining right, the salary will be forced down. When the workers have a higher bargaining right, the salary will be raised. Capitalists have a game with the labor union. Workers join the labor union and have a game with capitalists as a whole. All we discuss can also be regarded as a tax rate of a country. When politicians have a higher bargaining right, the tax rate will rise. When voters have a higher bargaining right, the tax rate will fall. As we all know, if the vegetable price in the market is too high or too low for a long time, the situation is wrong. If the price is too high for a long time, the buyer's interests will be damaged. If the price is too low for a long time, the seller's interests will be damaged. Hence, if our ego is too strong for a long time, interests of internal organs will be damaged, and cells of internal organs cannot get enough energy. Their functions will shrink. If the ego is too weak for a long time, interests of muscle cells will be damaged, and muscle cells cannot get enough energy. Their functions will shrink. The so-called power is an order generated from the game between two trade parties. In the slave society, a slave order was generated from the game between voters and politicians. In a feudal society, a feudal order was generated from the game between voters and politicians. Politicians and voters have a game. Just like social dancing. If voters make a step forward, politicians should make a step backward. Willingness and ability for voters and politicians to have a game decide the pattern of social orders. Maybe you will ask, if voters have no votes, can they still have a game with politicians? The answer is yes. Your hands, mouth, and feet can all be used to have a game. The money you have, or even a hoe can be used to have a game. Besides, a game may not always happen at a voting station. Market, mall, dining table, and private chat place can all function as a voting station. They all can be used to have a game. A vote only normalizes the game between politicians and voters. Politicians have a game with a voter group. Voters join the voter group and have a game with politicians as a whole. The corruption money comes from voters. So anti-corruption will finally rely on voters. You may ask, why politicians will stand for voters to make forceful anti-corruption, won't they? Such as Zhu Yangzhang, a king in ancient China. Anti-corruption among politicians is only to get chances for corruption, rather than influence the corruption itself. Just see how many lands Zhu's offspring occupied, and how he made his imperial concubines be buried alive with him. You will know the truth. Now that desire is a feeling about cooperation between internal organs and muscle cells, while fear is a feeling about game between internal organs and muscle cells. The place for their cooperation and game is the brain. Just like the seller and the buyer, they have cooperation and game at the vegetable market. You may ask, in the face of an object, when will the brain start a desire capture mechanism? When will it start a fear defense mechanism? At first, each object in the environment has both pros and cons for our body. No object in the world has only pros and no cons, or has only cons and no pros. This is because an object will guide internal organs to energize part of body cells, and will also destroy regional energy layout of the body. A beast will make the brain start the fear defense mechanism, but the beast image will also guide internal organs to energize muscle cells. Sexual desire can be satisfied by beauty. It is a desire for males. But excessive desire will turn into tension and fear. As feeling is impact of environmental information on the body, while the ability for our sense organs to bear the impact from environmental information is limited. It means our feeling has a weight. The more body cells the environmental information activates, the heavier the body feeling. When I see my crush, he is a desire for me. When we look at each other, the desire weight of him in my mind will increase. When the feeling weight keeps increasing to exceed the threshold I can bear, he will become a kind of fear. Fear of the sight. When a person weak in character and his leader or crush look at each other, more internal feelings will be activated by the leader or crush. When such feeling reaches the limit the patient's mental system can bear, he will feel nervous or even scared, and cannot dare look at the leader or crush. Similarly, when a person is doing one thing important to him, such as giving a lecture, dancing, or taking an exam, he will feel nervous. This has the same reason. Plus, This theory can explain some certain sins or phobia of sins, such as agoraphobe, claustrophobia, and demophobia. I was kidnapped by a stranger in the elevator when I was a child, so I dare not take an elevator. Cells in our body are arranged according to DNA information layout. Twins with the same DNA look basically the same. When an object in environment is seen, it will connect body cells in series. But the pattern of in-series connection will be different from the original DNA layout. This is the root why our body cannot bear too heavy feelings. Such in-series connection will destroy an original structure of the body. So, when we stay in an environment for too long, our energy will increasingly decrease. We will need sleep to repair environmental wear and damage of the body, so as to refresh. Now that any object in the environment has both pros and cons to the body, then how will the brain judge the object? Should it start a desire capture mechanism or a fear defense mechanism? The answer is that the human brain will judge whether the environmental object has more pros over cons to the body, or has more cons over pros. When there are more pros than cons, it will start the desire capture mechanism. When there are more cons than pros, it will start the fear defense mechanism. An object may seem to be fear to us, but when the fear feeling exceeds a limit, it will also turn into a desire. For example, a person was tricked by schoolmates when he was young and kept in a room with the dead. Maybe he would be scared out and prefer to stay with the dead later. Hence, fear and desire are two sides of one thing, which can mutually transform into each other. The root reason is that our consciousness and subconsciousness are two sides of one thing. Consciousness and subconsciousness can also mutually transformed. For the same object, desire is started by our consciousness layer, while fear is started by the subconsciousness layer. As the same object will activate part of our body cells and make internal organs energize these cells. Internal organs only energize cells in the consciousness region, but do not energize cells in the subconsciousness region. If we can only see this object in this life, only body cells in the consciousness region can survive. Cells in the subconsciousness region will shrink and die as they cannot get energy. Hence, when we see an object, it is both desire and fear for us. This object will split our body to make some cells tend to survive and others tend to die. Hence, for the same object, cells in our consciousness region and subconsciousness region always have opposite feelings. If cells in the consciousness region feel the object as desire, then cells in the subconsciousness region will feel it as fear. It's like a country with a two-party system. One political party supports a thing, then the opposition party will be opposed to it. Based on the theory, we can deduce, if you love a woman so much from the consciousness layer, you will hate her in the subconsciousness. The more you love the woman from the consciousness layer, the more you hate her from the subconsciousness layer. As cells in your subconsciousness layer lose energy supply due to this woman, if this woman exists, they cannot be energized. Hence, a marriage suffers 7 years each. When you love a person for enough time, you will be tired of him, her, and hate this person. Subconsciously, the feeling of hating the person will gradually dominate your mental system. A kid controlled by parents more seriously will have a stronger will of revolting in mind. If you have stronger conscience consciously, you will have an impulsion for anti-conscience subconsciously. Hence, human thinking is dual. Once a unitary thing exists, the other unitary one will exist automatically. Consciousness and subconsciousness are thinking and its background respectively, both of which exist in our body machine and complement each other. They are also mutually contradictory. If you get the chance to energize internal organs, I will not get such chance. To understand a negative pole, you need a positive one. To understand white, you need black. To understand capitalism, you need socialism. To understand consciousness, you need subconsciousness. Meanwhile, consciousness and subconsciousness can be mutually transformed. At this moment, you can understand black through white. Next moment, you can understand white through black. It means next moment, subconsciousness turns into consciousness. Consciousness turns into subconsciousness. The so-called judgment by the brain about whether an object has more pros than cons, or more cons than pros, is in fact the judgment about, between internal organs and muscle cells, whether cooperation exceeds game, or the game exceeds cooperation. As we discussed above, cooperation is desire, while game is fear. If their cooperation exceeds game, the brain will start the desire capture mechanism. If their game exceeds cooperation, the brain will start the fear defense mechanism. For the brain and muscle cells, if one of them expects cooperation, while the other expects game, how to deal with it? For example, in a vegetable market, one party expects to sell vegetables, while the other party does not hope to buy them. How to deal with it? At this moment, who is more powerful? The brain will start the feeling of a stronger party. For example, if the seller expects cooperation and has stronger power, the brain will start the desire capture mechanism. If the buyer is stronger, as the buyer does not expect cooperation, the brain will start the fear defense mechanism. For example, a girl was raped and insulted by a bad guy. In the face of him who raped her, the girl's brain started a fear defense mechanism with a very high grade. Internal organs energize a lot of muscle cells to make them defend against external threats. In this process, the muscle cells get benefits. Muscle cells do not transport substances to the internal organs, so the internal organs suffer great loss. Hence, in the face of the rapist, the internal organs are damaged, while muscle cells get benefits. For example, a company suffers a natural disaster. In the process of disaster relief, capitalists spend a lot of money hiring workers for disaster relief. In this process, the capitalists suffer great loss, while the workers benefit a lot. For another example, the foreign enemy invades a country. Taxpayers spend a lot hiring an army to defend against invasion. The taxpayers spend a lot, while the army benefits a lot. So from the perspective of interests, muscle cells, workers, and armies do not reject disasters, or even like them very much, as after occurrence of disasters, they will make money. So in the face of disasters, they start the desire. In the world of a single cell, there is no morality. There are only interests. Morality and law are generated from checks and balances of power between two parties of a game. If one party loses the ability of game, morality and legal provisions will be torn up by the other party. Internal organs, taxpayers and capitalists suffer the loss. So they try hard to reject disasters and the violent party. In the face of disasters, they start the fear. As for this issue, internal organs and muscle cells have a conflict of interest. In case of the conflict of interest, they will start a game. Being stronger, the feeling will dominate the brain. If muscle cells are stronger, the female victim will like being raped. This is the theory of Stockholm Syndrome. A lot of girls who were hurt by violence cannot select a good man. She always selects a man with propensity for violence, as there is a desire of being violated in her body. She has a raw mental structure. Consciousness and subconsciousness are two mental pillars of human beings, just like two legs of a person. It's very important to have two legs as strong as each other. This can make sure fast and steady walking and running of this person. Hence, it's very important that consciousness and subconsciousness can be mutually transformed according to needs, as cells on both consciousness and subconsciousness layers need to be energized by internal organs, while the energizing frequencies should be similar. Only in this way organs and tissues on both sides are as strong as each other. Otherwise, if some parts of a body are energized too much, while other parts are less energized, the body machine will have a lot of diseases. However, due to some reasons, we cannot or are unwilling to energize subconsciousness cells. These reasons include some special environments, standpoints and favors of our body. For example, when the girl met the rapist, the brain started a fear defense mechanism, while a lot of body cells were energized, which supported the girl to fight against the bad rapist. However, when a lot of cells in the girl's body were energized, the girl would have psychological dependence on him. When those muscle cells lack energy, they will send an application for energizing to the girl's brain, which will lead to her impulsion of liking the offender who hurt her. Some standpoint-related factors lead to mental imbalance of people. For example, in the vegetable market, we were born to be the seller, so for survival, we will naturally expect a higher price. This is a mental state bound with the body's standpoints, which will gradually lead to our mental imbalance. If I was born to be a tax gatherer or a capitalist, my social standpoint will tend to the tax collecting party and the representing capital. As time goes, it will lead to mental imbalance. In addition, mental imbalance may be caused by personal preference. A kid was born to be loved ardently by parents, so he thinks with themselves as the center. He also likes this thinking mode and cannot get rid of it as time goes. In his subconsciousness, he thinks with others as the center, so the representative cells are not energized by internal organs. As we discussed before, internal organs can energize the cells started only when transformation of subconsciousness into consciousness is started. Such unitary thinking mode will lead to imbalance and will damage the body machine. As a result, part of cells in the body machine get too much energy and get hypertrophy. Other cells get too little energy, shrink and die. Diversified factors will lead to uneven energy distribution in body cells. So I often exhort others to have equal beliefs Uneven energizing of body cells will damage the body machine and will also lead to our mental damage. I'm not kidding about equal. It really decides the core physical and mental interests of us. The human body machine is a whole. If consciousness and subconsciousness are not equal, that is, one leg is fat and the other is thin, a person will have difficulties in walking. The key of switching between consciousness and subconsciousness is the orientation of attention. If the attention is oriented to a part of cells, they will stand for consciousness. Others will stand for subconsciousness. When a person's attention is oriented to cells in the consciousness region, internal organs will energize cells in the consciousness region. When the person's attention is oriented to cells in the subconsciousness region, cells in this region will turn into a consciousness region. Internal organs will energize the cells in the former consciousness region. Attention is the mental core of human beings. It is the only way for internal organs to energize brain cells and muscle cells. When we see an object in the environment, attention will be automatically oriented. Brain cells, internal organs, and environment started by the environment will be bound together. Hence, internal organs will also automatically energize brain cells started by environment. For body cells, getting attention is getting a chance of energizing. There are hundreds of trillions of cells in our body. They consume energy every moment. When the energy is about to be used up, they will apply for energizing to the brain. Muscle cells send an energizing signal internally to the brain. The signal is received by the brain. It's the desire of body we can feel. Such desire will also join the fight for body attention. If it wins, the brain will orient attention to the cells felt and give them the chance of energizing. If a big desire signal and a small desire signal in the body are received by the brain at the same time, they will have a game in the brain at first. After the game, the big desire will win and get the attention and the chance of energizing at first. It means there may be a lot of desires in the body, such as eating, shopping, study, internet surfing, smoking, and gambling. When two desires come across, the brain will first deal with the big one. If desires of eating and internet surfing meet, as the desire of eating is bigger, the brain will command the body to eat. If the desire of internet surfing is bigger, the brain will command the body to surf the internet. Then here comes the question. Not all desires in the body are good. There are body good desires and bad desires in the body. Bad desires refer to gambling, smoking, and drugging addiction, as well as other desires harmful to the body, such as the desire of making the mental system imbalanced, the subconscious desire of being raped, and so on. Or some anti-reality desires. If bad and good desires meet in the brain, the bad desire is bigger and the good desire is smaller. How to deal with it? We know the game rule of desires in the brain is that when a big desire has a game with a small one, the small desire will fail, and the brain will energize the big one at first. For example, I want to drink wine due to alcohol addiction.
几次真的想让自己醉，让自己远离那许多恩怨是非。
But drinking wine is not healthy. At this time, the desire of drinking and that of keeping health enter a state of game. If the bad desire is bigger, you will drink wine, regardless of uremia of the body. At this moment, We don't want the bad desire to take the upper hand in game. So we use logic. The logic in the human brain means plus minus calculation of desires. The calculation is used to help you release a certain desire you want to release and restrain a desire you don't want to release. For example, drinking wine will not only damage the health, but will also make you fail to pick up the kid from school, as the school is over soon. If the desire of picking up the kid from school is added into the calculation, the bad desire of drinking wine will be smaller than the sum of a desire of becoming a good dad and a desire of keeping health. Then, through game in the brain, the good desire takes the upper hand. You will not drink wine and then go to pick up the kid. The main purpose of human psychotherapy is to help patients clear away bad desires in vivo. A bad desire can be regarded as a toxic experience in life, which can form a toxic ego. For the girl being raped, as we discussed above, when she was being raped, muscle cells get a lot of energy. This is a bad desire. As we mentioned before, for every object we experience in the universe, its image will be stored in the brain. This image corresponds to establishment of an ego in our heart. Clearing away a bad desire in the body is to clear away an ego in the body, or more exactly, to clear away a part out of control in an uncontrollable ego. In this process, the body will experience a withdrawal reaction. The withdrawal reaction is a feeling of death of an old ego in the body. When people quit smoking, wine, drug use, gambling, dependence on parents, handjob, sexual addiction, as well as anti-reality desires of loss of the girlfriend, parents, and career, they will experience this process. The environment is changing. Every time when we see a new object or scene, an ego will be built in our heart. Similarly, when each object in the environment leaves us, we will lose an ego. For example, mom's death, breaking up, career failure, or the like.
这拒绝口不停，怎么才能骗过自己？隐藏心底压抑。
When we lose a close person or unique scene, the environment will close an ego in our heart. Meanwhile, the body machine cannot start corresponding brain cells and muscle cells by the object in the environment. Internal organs cannot energize these cells. Failing to find a former ego, we will feel anxious. Part of cells cannot be energized. The cell energy value decreases. The cell feeling is detected by the brain, so we will feel depressed. Without energy, cells start shrinking and dying, which will make the body machine ineffective. We will feel jam in mental running. This is a dilemma facing the raped girl. Clearing away the toxic ego will lead to depression, anxiety, and mental jam. If it is not cleared away, the shadow will always exist. The shadow means, as for internal organs and muscle cells of a patient, one of them likes doing a thing, the other one dislikes it. For example, internal organs feel the loss in the face of the violence party. It tells the brain it hates the object. As the object does not input substances into the internal organs. On the contrary, the object makes the internal organs output a lot of energy. For example, when a natural disaster happens, capitalists pay a lot to workers, but their enterprise gets no profit or output. So I want you to start the fear defense mechanism to repel the object. Muscle cells perform differently. It tells the brain that, for this object, it wants to start the desire capture mechanism. See, my deposit is used up, and there is no energy at home. I want to cooperate with the object rather than repair it. Hence, when muscle cells of the patient lack energy, they will apply for energizing to the brain. At this time, the patient will have an impulsion to be raped. However, the impulsion will be strongly repelled by internal organs. At this moment, muscle cells in the patient's body will start a game with internal organs. The patient will keep recalling the horrible scene of being raped, unless her muscle memory is cleared away. While muscle cells cannot be energized by the experience, she would never get rid of the shadow. The only way of clearing away muscle memory is that the brain does not orient attention to them. Then internal organs will not energize them. As time goes, these cells will shrink and die. All these cells can be energized by new life experience, so the patient can overcome the past experience and get rid of the vortex. Drugs cannot make it. A drug is essentially a stimulant or sedative. Stimulant can be regarded as a chemical currency used for trade between internal organs and muscle cells. The brain is between internal organs and muscle cells. There is a connection pipe between internal organs and muscle cells. The brain releases the stimulant to open the connection pipe. Then energy will flow from internal organs into muscle cells. When releasing the sedative, the brain will close the connection pipe. It means the brain stops the trade between internal organs and corresponding muscle cells. Opening and closing of mirror images in the human brain should follow reality rules. The so-called reality rules mean that opening or closing of images in the human brain is decided by the environment. You see your mom's death, then she really dies. When you see that your mom is alive, she is really alive. When mom dies, your mirror image in the brain will be closed, or to say it cannot be started by the environment. Corresponding muscle cells will lose the chance of energizing. However, in the mental system of humans, there is an anti-reality mechanism to open an image in the brain. Muscle cells may not obey constraints of reality rules. That is, the desire in your body can, according to its needs, open the image in brain so as to energize muscle cells. For example, you can image mom is dead, or she is not dead. You can image mom is walking on the ground, or she is flying in the sky. The real world is changing. Our body keeps generating new egos and making old egos die. When old egos die, a lot of cells in the body machine will lose energy supply. Anti-reality desires can temporarily provide a chance of energizing to muscle cells, such as missing and fantasy. When people are thinking or having psychosexuality, handjob, fantasy and mental dissociation, muscle cells are dominating running of the mental system. From inside, they open mirror images in the brain library of everything mirror images. Internal organs energize muscle cells represented by these images. Humans' mental system should follow reality rules to survive in the reality. When humans think, muscle cells are driving opening or closing of mirror images in the brain, which is driven by body desires. It has a positive significance on body survival. Most of the rest anti-reality desires in body are harmful desires. Anti-reality desires and reality rules will also have a game in the brain. If reality rules defeat anti-reality desires, your mind will be kept healthy. If anti-reality desires defeat reality rules, Your mind will get sick, just like a human body. A society will also suffer cancerization. Cancerization means uneven energy distribution in the human body. Some cells get too much energy and keep hyperplasia, with tissue hypertrophy. Some cells get too little energy and keep decreasing, with tissue shrinking. As we analyzed before, because of special things or our physical standpoints and favors, we will like one feeling and dislike the other. As for cells represented by the feeling we like, the internal organs will spend more time energizing them. As for cells represented by the feeling we dislike, energy supplied by the internal organs will be much less. Generally speaking, consciousness and subconsciousness cannot be switched, or there is no willingness for such switching. The switching of consciousness and subconsciousness is like rotation of ruling parties in the human society. If you like a perfect thing, as perfectness means it only has a good side and has no bad side, it will lead to your physical cancerization. The reason is that you prefer this feeling, so you will stay at the good feeling for longer, just like a hierarchy of a religious sect. A good side and a bad side are positive and negative aspects of one thing, namely a conscious phase and a subconscious phase of the body. If you only see advantages of the hierarch and cannot see his disadvantages, or think he has more advantages than disadvantages, your mind will be out of balance. As for the hierarch, your body is suffering cancerization. It is the same for cancerization of a country. Politicians and taxpayers have a game. If the politicians have the bargaining right, they will expect a higher tax rate, while social interests will flow to the politicians. One-way flow of social interests means cancerization of the society. The cancerization takes place toward the politicians. The only way to solve cancerization is the reverse cancerization. If politicians have the bargaining right in a stage, then voters should have the right in the next stage. When the voters have the bargaining right, they will surely expect a lower tax rate. The society is still under cancerization at this time. The cancerization happens toward voters. The cancerization in this direction neutralizes the former one, thereby offsetting cancerization of the society. Corruption itself is a cancerization phenomenon. It is a result of long-run possession of bargaining right by the politicians. Corruption, exploitation, and cancerization have the same meaning. The only difference is that they happen in countries, companies, and human bodies. In a company, capitalists and workers have a game for interests. When capitalists have the bargaining right, interests will flow to them. They even hope you work only and get no pay. When workers have the bargaining right, interests will flow to them. They even hope to get pay only and do no work. Between capitalists and workers, interests will flow to whom gets the bargaining right. So bargaining right is the core of this problem. The one with the bargaining right can control the flowing direction of interests. We should always remember, it's useless to wipe out capitalists or politicians, as they stand for a positive pole and a negative pole of one thing. Neither can be eradicated only. In the high-dimension universe, a life entity is also called a co-right entity. It means each cell in the co-right entity has the equal bargaining right. The person stopping workers from joining an independent labor union and stopping voters from joining a voter group is depriving workers and voters of their bargaining right. Imbalance of the bargaining right will lead to one-direction flow of interests. The co-right entity will start cancerization. Due to one-direction cancerization, one party keeps revolting, which finally leads to death and dissolution of the co-right entity. Simply speaking, if you declare you're a materialist, your body is starting cancerization toward materialism. If you declare you're an idealist and firmly believe idealism, Your body is starting cancerization toward idealism. Imbalance of a single ego and an accumulative ego will lead to local or global cancerization of the body. Know that no matter which belief we have, the cancerization will happen. Which belief can slow down the cancerization? Let me make a conclusion. If a person believes freedom, equality, peace, and balance, the rate of cancerization will be greatly slowed down. Freedom means consciousness and subconsciousness can be overturned freely according to needs. Balance means consciousness and subconsciousness can energize in turn with equal strengths. Peace means consciousness and subconsciousness can be overturned peacefully, as violence will break the balance. If one party in the vegetable market has violence, it will monopolize the bargaining right, which leads to price imbalance in the market. With a gun, you can sell a cabbage out at RMB 1,000. Equality was explained above. That is, each cell in the body has the equal bargaining right. Remember this. Love your enemy as yourself in the mirror. Conscious cells and subconscious cells in your body are mutual enemies. Only by loving each other, it is possible to clear way to the hilt. The overturning obstacle of consciousness and subconsciousness. These beliefs can be concluded with one word: the co-rightism. If a person firmly believes co-rightism, the physical cancerization will be greatly slowed down. A human body is common in the universe. You can later think about why electrons and atoms on the bottom of universe are called identical particles, or electrons and atoms have no difference. This thought is called an everything mirror image system, which explains all mental phenomena of human beings, including all mental diseases. This thought is able to cure depression, anxiety disorder, amnesia, anorexia, phobia, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, and so on. In addition, the thought also explains a lot of difficult miscellaneous diseases, such as cancer, Alzheimer's disease, migraine, and non-acclimatization. It is a new medical system. Who invented this thought? How could he have such a thorough understanding of the life essence? Did he create the life?
If you want to have a further understanding of it, I will recommend my book to you, Medical Heart Sutra of Apocalypse. With 1,000,000 words, Medical Heart Sutra of Apocalypse elaborates how this thought works in all aspects. In the book, cells turn into vampires as avatars. To survive, they build a blood product factory to produce blood and gather raw materials from the nature to survive and keep running. The company keeps fighting against huge changes of the nature to distribute blood equally. It fights against internal cancerization and keeps building different blood distribution mechanisms. As for the mental mechanism of human beings, by reading this book, you can have a clear and all-round understanding of running details of human mind, as well as causality about its failure. In the end of book, a surprising universe-level secret was revealed. We're living in a math world called quantum matrix. Mental data in vacuum keeps absorbing energy and transforms it into substances. The book is sold at ebook platforms such as Google and Redmo. If you're troubled by mental problems or want to learn the thought, welcome to contact the author. It is the propagandist of human world. Every life with cooling will be saved.